Hello, and I want to thank you for investing in the Shareholders podcast. I'm Monty Mott. I have another great show for you guys. I really hope you've been enjoying the content, man. God is good. This has just been, I'm just getting booked and being blessed by God to just have so many people come on, so many wonderful people. And again, I have to thank Miss Sharday because my guest I have this week, I also heard her speak at the Shades of Health Summit. I'm giving Shades of Health all kinds of plugs, but she spoke so well and her testimony is unbelievable. And I said again to myself, I have to get her on. And I wanted her earlier and schedules and all that. See, when you're dealing with successful people, they busy. So we're trying to line things up. So she took time and I really appreciate because I know she was sacrificing time to be here today. But I want to just say hello and welcome Miss Lynne. How are you doing and how are things with you?
Well, I'm excited to be here and I appreciate this opportunity to share with you guys. So thank you very much.
Awesome.
Things are going good. I have to attest that God is moving for me as well.
Yeah.
In different areas of my life, though, personal, professional, career-wise, too, because I still work full-time for the county.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, things are doing pretty good right now, going pretty well.
That's good. That's good to hear. So, I want to just get right into it. I see you a lot on social media, and you've also written a book on this topic. And a big thing for you is the phrase "beat the odds."
Yes,
that's kind of a main focus for you. And you spoke a little bit about that at the summit. But I want for our audience, can you tell us first of all, what does that really mean for you? What does that mean personally for you? Beat the odds.
Well, I'm gonna sum it up by saying, at one point in my life, I was 17 years old. Mm-hmm. I was pregnant, but I already had 2 children. All my children are sons. Mm-hmm. And also at the same time, I was labeled a foster child. Yeah. So when you look at the odds, they were totally against me.
Yeah.
And my children, all of my sons grew up to graduate on time with their senior class, my older with honors. My oldest son's mother was 14 years old. That's his testimony, wow. And he's grown up to be very successful. They never saw the juvenile justice system. I come from a family of addicts. I do not do drugs and I do not drink alcohol unless it's socially. So again, in a nutshell, from that perspective, all the odds were against me and I beat them.
And that is just like you say, just from there, if you just still alive and got your right mind, that's a success story in and of itself. But you've actually now parlayed that into writing books, I should say, plural. And you've really kind of catapult yourself. We're going to talk about educationally and all that in a minute. But what really motivated you to even write a book in the first place? A lot of people, man, I'm going to write a book at some point. I'm going to write, everybody done said they're going to write a book at some point, but you did it. And what was really that push for you to actually get that done and write an actual book?
Well, to be honest, coming from that perspective, I was going through a lot of heartache from a relationship. And during that relationship, some things took place that was causing me to be upset. So I'm not a violent person. I'm the type that if I put your car on flat, I'm going to fix it. So don't need to do that, right? We're not going to bust the window because I'm going to fix it, right? So instead of acting out like that, I would go home and I would cry and write. Mm-hmm. And I started writing about other things that made me feel the same way, that hurt, And over time, I had written down so much and I was like, wow. Then you have to ask yourself, do you want to share this? Because it's ironic. I wrote my very first book in 2005, and it was called It's Okay to Cry. That's it. And when I wrote it, it's funny you asked about writing and sharing it and getting it out. Writing your story and telling your story is 2 different things.
Yeah.
And back in 2005, I thought I was ready to talk about it, but I wasn't. But I wrote about it, but I wasn't ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready, you can't embrace those things. So I wrote from that perspective of going through all that, what I considered pain at the time. I just transferred it into words on paper.
That's leading me to my next question with you then, because to actually tell your story, especially when you've been through so many things and it's personal and it's, you're telling it to people that you don't know, and people gonna read this that are strangers to you. And you know how we don't like all folk in our business and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard was that to where you like you say, writing is one thing, but now giving it to a publisher and go ahead and put it. How hard was that?
I think with my first initial process, I think it was honestly more about me proving that I could do it. That was a part of it. Like, let me prove that I can actually write a book.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that write a book. And I'm going to tell you, I felt like God recently told me, because I'm like, I wrote this in 2005, but I just really learned to embrace your purpose for me, God. Just like really trying to understand, like, okay, I did this back in 2005 before people was telling.
Yeah.
And I felt like God said, because they're going to know you was willing to tell it before they start telling it. Because in 2005, the stories that's coming out now, they wasn't telling like they're telling now.
Yeah.
So I felt like that's what God told me, that your honesty goes a long way. It's not like you one of the people coming to the forefront because everybody else has done it. And that's not why everybody's doing it. I'm just saying, for me, it was God said you was willing to tell it when they wasn't telling it. I'm talking the dirt, the grit. Like, I told some stuff that people's not talking about, even down to having an abortion. I talked about it in 2005. And a part of my platform now is I talk about the impacts of an abortion that's on women. And we can get into that. I'm going to let you proceed. But it's different. And I wanted to share in a sense of, typically we feel like we're alone.
Yeah.
I've been blessed with people always sharing their story. I mean, like, I could be sitting at the bus stop or be sitting at a restaurant or somewhere, and somebody will pour their heart into me. But then I'll feel like I'll walk away feeling like I made them feel better.
Yeah.
And even as a young girl, I remember people would always tell me stuff and tell me their business. And I would feel like I kind of helped them. Like, I walked away feeling like I helped them. I said something that helped them.
Yeah.
So that was a part of it too, just wanting people not to feel like they were alone in some of that stuff that I went through.
And that's amazing because, you didn't, I'm sure, in 2005 or even, before that, when you're going through that, nobody asked for those things to happen to them, but they happen to you.
Yes.
And then how you deal with it, determines who you are. And now, kind of like you said, after writing the book and having now people kind of come to you like, man, let me tell you this and this. And it's kind of a calling that found you. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't, like you said, you probably wouldn't want to go through the things you've been through again, but you find yourself now in a position where people that read your book, or maybe women that come to you kind of look to you like, man, I see what you went through. Let me tell you, thank you. And so you kind of now, I don't want to, responsibility is not the right word, but you've kind of opened yourself up now to.
But it's been like that kind of much all my life. I've been afforded the opportunity to work in careers that allow me to work with other people. Like, I just met with a former colleague, and we were talking. We worked together 20 years ago in a level 5 mental health facility.
Wow.
But we didn't even understand what we were doing.
Yeah.
And here it is. That was like 98, 99.
Wow. Here
we are today. Like, do you see what's going on with mental health? And we processing the medication we knew them children was on, because we work with youth. From foster care and juvenile justice system. So we were like, wow, like, we didn't even understand what we were doing, then. So again, just being able to work with people who needed me to share and help them understand that I understand. So I've been blessed in that opportunity, because even now, when I get with God and I'm trying to figure things out and understand where my life is going, because I could feel the threshold, I could feel things are opening up better. So then you'd be like, oh, why I wasn't ready 10 years ago? Yeah. Why I wasn't doing this when I wrote the first book? But it all comes together.
Yes, it does.
It all comes together.
That's amazing to hear. And so you kind of segueing me into one of my next questions. Now, you've worked in the foster care system, and I didn't know the part about the mental health facility as well. And so if I could ask you what I had Dr. Edwards on, or Mr. Edwards, I always call him Dr. Roy Edwards, and we were talking about the educational system. But in terms of the foster care system, which is, I feel, a lot of times kind of either forgotten or ignored in communities and things like that. What are some things that you've seen that you would really want to have improved in terms of maybe with funding or just awareness and things like that, in terms of what these kids go through going through that system?
Well, I think that enough success stories are not acknowledged. Because if there's not enough success stories being acknowledged, then how can the kids that's coming from the system believe that they can be better if they're not hearing about it? And it's not the same when, a celebrity get up and say it. It is still different. Even though they come from that and they can attain that level of success, still the real people like me that's out here every day, it's a lot of me. I don't ever feel like I'm the only one or it's not I know it's a lot of me walking around here that's not full of fame, but have a story like mine. And because of the way the foster care system is set up, the way the foster care system is not valued in communities, then it makes it hard. So the lack of value in it can't generate enough energy, because I'm an energy generating person, to make it as important as it needs to be in its communities that it's trying to serve.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like, is it something where could we, all rally around that? Like what would need to happen for us to kind of like, man, we need more awareness. We need more of that. Is that something when you go to like, is it Congress? Is it just state rep? I don't even know the first thing about improve. I know it needs to be improved. I don't even know
And I won't even say, I come from an era in the foster care system where I've seen the agency improve because I have that perspective. So I'm not going to deny. From my perspective, the agency has came a long way.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good.
Even with me being in the department I'm in now, I'm watching the way that they're addressing to meet the needs of the foster care system is flourishing right now. But I just moved into this position. Actually, it was a year yesterday.
Oh, okay.
My anniversary in this new position was a year yesterday. So transitioning over from actually being on the CPS side firsthand at the hotline intake, hearing all the dirt, the grime, I got that perspective of children growing up not feeling safe from the people who's supposed to keep them safe, right? And so, but I've seen the foster, and I've seen lawmakers now getting involved. I want to credit some things for like what Mr. Weekly have done.
Oh yeah, Weekly. That's
yeah. So again, our community is just a matter of keeping the flame burning.
Yeah,
that's what's missing. We'll get some things going.
There we go.
And then it kind of die out. Then something will happen, and then it'll pick it back up. And we could just keep that same playing level, at that same level. We could get that fire burning, and then it'll burn to where it gets where it needs to get to, down somewhere in the right people.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear, especially from your perspective. So now, family service specialists, does that encompass all of that, or is that more to that?
It's an umbrella. So, with so many entities within the Department of Family Services within itself.
Yeah.
So because there's so many entities within itself, I have my role, then there's the next role, then there's the next role. It's funny because they announce honoring first responders on the radio all the time for 88.1. So I was like, you know what? Like the intake unit for the Department of Family Services is the first line of defense for our kids. Yeah. That intake is making the decisions whether somebody go out, And so I'm like, I wonder if I could, go try to get them, recognized. And even we have what's called an emergency response team. And they the first ones out there. When law enforcement can't show up, and 9 times they need to go together. But the emergency response team, they out there, they in there, they in the grit of it.
Yeah.
By the time it get to the next level, And so I think that the agency as a whole, people don't understand the different levels, the different dynamics that all have to work together.
Yeah.
And so once we, as a community, start understanding what that looks like, because it's a lot of myths, it's a lot of false stories, it's a lot of misunderstandings, it's a lot of lack of communication in the community about the foster care system.
That's so good to hear. This is amazing. Your perspective that you don't always hear, and like you say, we have to be more consistent in our communities with that. Like we can't wait for something to happen or something bad to happen to a child, and we all rally around. But I appreciate the perspective that you're having on that. So I wanna get back just for some of the personal with you as well. You hold 3 degrees from what I do. From what I've heard. Come on now.
I'm blessed. I feel
impressive.
Blessed. Thank you.
What do you feel? And not that, again, I don't want to put responsibility on your shoulders, but
sure.
As a Black woman and what you've had to go through, and now you're an author, you hold degrees. Now you're an educator and you're helping with children. When you see younger women that are maybe in the throes of some of the things that you've gone through, you know, excuse me, and they kind of feel hopeless is what I would want to say, to where, you know, my family or my father, this and this and this and that. What are some of the first things that you like to try to tell or instill in that young girl that might have been a young Lynne back in the day? You know what I mean? Like,
so if I was talking to my younger
self. If you could say, I was going around the corner. But yeah,
you know, it's so funny because, again, I'm in a space in my life where this is why people in your life are so important. And in one of my chapters in the last book I just released in July, I talked about nurturing and never losing relationships. Nurture them, right? Yeah. And I talk about those relationships because it's very important that we understand what type of people we have in our life. And our young people need to start realizing that early. You know, peer pressure is on the rise, and what they're exposed to in these times, we didn't have a clue growing up. So that's the difference in our society. So me even talking to my younger self, I wouldn't try to go there now, because this level of exposure, this level of self-identity, this level of self-worth, this level of I need a like.
Oh my goodness. You
know what I'm saying? Has changed the game from where we were growing up. So we almost can't even deliver the same message. But the root of the message that I would try to share and get out there for the platform I'm on now, I talk very extensively about understanding your coping skills. Because if I have to attribute anything to my success with the grace of God, is me being able to cope. Yeah. And me going into the high schools the way I've been going to high schools, these children don't even know what that means.
Yeah, no, they don't.
You know, and I'll put a picture up and I'll point to the picture and I'll say, what do you see? And the kids will give me like all their perspectives. And I'll say, well, but let me tell you what's really going on. And then I'll explain it, and you can feel the shift in the room because they never looked at sex as a coping skill. And I'm going to leave it right there, but they don't. But when you can understand, when you're engaging in a behavior that you don't even understand what you're really doing at that age. Yeah. You don't understand the significance of it, the importance of it, what it means long-term, and also the things that it create internally from you not understanding what you're doing so young when you get older. You know, and talking about overcoming shame and guilt and low self-esteem. Yeah. It's a lot of kids walking around with suicide ideation. I never talked about having suicide ideation, but it was a thought all the time. Yeah. I just never developed a plan, so that was it for me. But the way our young people are growing up and the things they're exposed to, that even as parents, we can't even control. So that's the hard part too. Yeah. We can't even control what happens with a click, you know, and then what's open up to them. And again, the energy that's out in our communities that our children are engaged in is hard.
It is. And it's, you know, I've talked about sometimes the beauty and the accessibility of the internet, how it can help, but there's a very dark side to that. And I feel like a lot of times with these kids, there's a void they're trying to fill. Yes. And let me just, like you say, this thirst for likes and wanting to be accepted and all of that. And, you know, everybody wants to, but it's such a desperation. And it's like, what's really happening to where you feel like you got to put yourself out there like that? And, you know, go ahead.
In addition to that, because of social media, because of technology, our young people's social skills are lacking.
Oh, my God.
So they don't even know how to engage no more. You know, we can send an emoji and shut it down. You know what I'm saying?
You come on.
So I remember, you know, used to go in the doctor's office and you left out knowing everybody because everybody was communicating and talking. Now, you know, you look up at somebody, because I make it a point to put my phone down in the restaurants, doctor's offices, because I'm checking it, you know. And it's no social interaction anymore at all. When you drive down the street, pay attention. Everybody is in their phone. That's why I'm so conscious of it. And it's heartbreaking, really.
It is.
So our young people don't even know how to communicate.
That's deep that you said that. That is so true. And you know how we used to say, I make me sound old, but you know, back in the day, we went outside and played. And you know, we went to parks and rode bikes and all of that. And now, you know,
even with Atari. Atari didn't captivate us, and, you know, Atari didn't have us all hypnotized, you know. But we had games back then.
Now, and it's really, we're seeing the bike, because now there's generations who are being born, when they were born, the internet was out. You know, when I was young, I remember the internet coming up, but these kids are now born in this internet.
Well, the internet, the babysitter.
Born in it, it is.
You know, the iPad, the babysitter. The phone is the babysitter.
And them kids, them babies be transfixed. And like you say, it's The residual effect of that, the coping skills, and they don't know nothing about that. They they want everything just everything.
So again, I process me being able to cope through a lot of stuff that I went through, and me having the ability to cope on my thirst to try to better serve who I'm trying to serve, women, children, and youth. Things start coming, and answers started coming, even down to, you can meet a man. And when a man can direct you to a scripture that you've always wondered, like, what describes or defines me? Like, why am I like I am? Why am I a crier, right? What is it? So you crying out to God about it. And then you understand, but you don't. But you do know I cried out to God. And I felt better. So it's something to it. For me, that's what it was like. It was always, if I cry out, get them tears out. And I heard Teray say, Sarah Jakes Roberts' husband say, he said, when you cry out to God, he hears it different. So he takes care of it different. And then everything from that, the energy from that manifests different, right? So the scripture is Psalms 42:3. My tears was my meat by day and by night. And they would always ask, where are their God? And the way I interpret that is to say I've always been a crier as part of my platform, which something so powerful is made to be so weak. But I attribute that to saying people look at my life like she a crier. Some may call me weak. Some might find it inspirational. But when you question it, where art there God, it's because I have a certain level of peace that doesn't look like somebody else's peace. I have a certain level of confidence that doesn't look like somebody else's confidence. So for me, you're trying to figure it out is for you to see something through me so you can figure it out. So when you asking where he's at in my life, I'm a testimony. I'm right here. And just to understand how I'm 49 years old and like, oh my God, God is really trying to use me. When that hits you, it feels different. When those ideals and those concepts and the realization of your life manifesting, it gives you a certain level of confidence you didn't have, a certain level of belief. Fear start falling off, insecurity start falling off, you're worrying less, all doubt starts seeping away. It's when you embrace that, though. And that's what our young people, they don't even know how to figure out who they are and find themselves because there's too many distractions.
That's good.
There's too many distractions.
Y'all hear this? I told y'all these folks know what they talking about. It was on. This is how it was at the summit. And man, that was excellent what you just said there. I love how you said it's part of your platform when you cry. I like that. It's like it's not something that, don't want nobody to. It's just a part of you, but it's something that you've learned to find as a strength that a lot of people would try to call a weakness. But that is good. That is excellent. Okay, man, this has been outstanding. But I know you said you got some books that are coming out as well. Are you working on some things?
Yes,
on that grind.
I'll go on this head. So I turned 50 in 2020.
All right, praise.
So one of my for my birthday, I'm going to have a 50th birthday party, but I'm going to do a book release. And the book, I'm going to put it out there. The book is called A Special Kind of Mama, right? And you will get a deeper perspective of me and the things I've been through. And I'm not talking just the negative stuff. I'm talking, I've had some really good people in my life. And so like one of my chapters is called The Visionary. One of my chapters is called The Strength. Those people gave me strength. I share, and then there's a twist in the book.
Okay, all right.
Nothing but God, though. Because when I read them, like, oh my God, I said that. And then the twist come, but the second twist come right behind it in the book.
Nice.
So that's my 50th celebration, is to share that part of me with the world.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
From a perspective that is unique. And I think for all of us as a whole, we'll get a better understanding of the way we treat people, the way we interact with people has long-lasting effects. And if you can acknowledge your intentions when you interact with somebody, your motivation, what's behind it, even if it's you saying hi with a happy face or you speaking with a you know what I'm saying? It's something behind all that, but the energy behind it is pressed upon somebody else. So what are you trying to put out there? What do you want people to see? I'm in a relationship where I'm really being tested. I'm use that because it's like, you know yourself, But God will send somebody to bring some stuff out of you, and you just be like, oh my God, but it's a choice to run from it.
You're right, yeah.
Or it's a choice to embrace it. And I have a book, the book I released in July, I have a whole chapter on feeling uncomfortable. So my platform is talking about coping skills, how to manage and things like that. But I'm a runner.
Yeah.
I run from relationships, especially if I'm not in control.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that's God revealing to me now, is to release some control, and be open to, while you're in that uncomfortable space, no matter what the outcome is, in that space, what's the lesson? See, that's what we're missing too. We're meeting people, we're interacting with people, we're engaged in things, activities, events, but what are you learning in the middle of all of that? So even to young people, with everything you're doing, you can just take a step back and say, what's my lesson out of this? What is God or the universe or whatever because everybody, I understand that we live in a time, because I keep it real. I'm going to express I'm God all day, but I don't ignore the other stuff, I don't want to miss anybody. But for our young people, just to understand, number one, how are you coping? How are you managing? How are you dealing with everyday life when it's so real and it's so hard for you? What are you going to inside? Mm-hmm. Even if it's you run into sex, even if you run into you smoke weed, but I got boys who run into basketball. I got kids that's running the track. Yeah. I got girls who trying to sing. I got girls who's doing hair. So I see it all from our perspective, but I want them to really go inside and say, you know what I got, what I'm built from. Those are real questions that you can start asking at that age, because when I go back, like, how did I do it? Like, what made me different? Yeah. How did I overcome, right? I'm a victim of sexual abuse. I'm a victim of rape. I grew up in a house with an addict. Mm-hmm. And on my platform, I talk about what happens to a child that grows up in a household with an addict. What is being placed upon that child? Mm-hmm. And the things that come with it, even down to feeling resentment, being angry, growing up with self-doubt. But what is society calling it? They bad.
Right, yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? We're not recognizing behaviors are being displayed because a need is not being met.
Yeah,
And because of that, and because it's being misunderstood, even just right quick, I'll talk about bargaining and manipulation. When you're trying to meet somebody's need, if you can determine whether they're trying to manipulate you and bargain with you, it's going to make you respond different.
Yeah.
Right? So when we talk about bargaining, we both going to get something. It's a fair exchange, right? Mm-hmm. I do this, you do this. Mm-hmm. Manipulation means, I'm going to get what I want by any means necessary, no matter what it does to you in the process.
Right.
So if I'm responding to bargaining, I'm responding a little different as opposed to, I think you're trying to manipulate me. And those are the things that as a community, and even as parents, as teachers, as foster parents, if you miss that, then a child can't heal. Or a person can't even heal. It becomes a constant battle. Did that make sense?
Man, no, that makes excellent sense.
So those are things.
You have an openness to you that I
thank
love,
you.
Because you just put it out there. I really enjoy that. Man, so we could keep going on this for another hour. This has been so good. And I'm telling you guys, this is how it was. They didn't have a lot of time, but when they spoke, I was just like, wow, these people are amazing, and it's just...
I love their saying that too. I was like, that was a good thing.
Yeah, that was really great. So, real quick, I got to ask you too. So, as an author, is there anything that you read or that you've read that has really inspired you that you could tell the audience? Anything or that you come across in your time that really spoke to you in a book or anything like that?
Well, right now, I've read this book 3 times. I don't know why I feel brand new, but Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm reading right now. And what I love about that book, and I feel like it carries so much power, is the scriptures. Mm-hmm. And I do want to share, once we understand how scriptures work, the energy and the power that's behind scriptures, we'll understand how to use them. For the people who just spit them because it sounds good, don't diminish the power because of your intention behind when you use. You wonder why things are not manifesting the way we want them to. Preachers too. Mm-hmm. If your intention behind what you're doing, you're not getting the results you want. Them little 1 or 2 hits or misses is not the same as you really knowing and embracing the platform that you're building and your intention behind it. The energy behind it. So that book is so powerful to me because I'm reading and I'm understanding from a different perspective how these scriptures work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even how once I figured out the scripture that I feel that God is manifesting through me. It's like the power behind scripture because it's the energy behind it. It's a living word. So you grow up thinking, well, what is a living word? What's, this Bible? Well, we keep it alive.
Yeah.
We keep Jesus alive because the energy behind it. And typically people's energy behind thinking about him is always positive.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine 50 million people on a positive note about Jesus. He ain't gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a scripture, every time I say, I can do all things through Christ which strengthen me.
Right.
It has so much power for me because I know the 50 other thousand people that say it is good energy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wake up singing it, go to sleep because the power behind it.
Right.
And then it eventually gets to a point where you feel it, where you can believe it. But we don't put enough time into it if things not working like this because we live in a time of immediate gratification.
Yeah.
Instead of patience and trying to grow and develop over time. Because that's why I feel like God has shown me. It's like I had to develop you, woman.
Yeah.
I had to get you there. And I didn't want to set you up to fail because you wasn't ready. So I kept you in a place where I knew you can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Man. Oh, man. That is
so another book, though, I was reading, Nipsey Hussle had said he had read, was reading it. And it's the, what is it called? It's about a man. Oh, my God. I know it's in my book. It's in my book. It's because I like to read different stuff because it gives me a different perspective as well.
Yeah.
But this book is so deep. It's a very good read is what I call. Where's my library? And I'm like, oh my God, this book is not.
I'm trying to remember what.
Oh, there it is. The Way of the Superior Man.
Oh, okay. All right.
I started reading. I had to stop because you still have to be ready for stuff. I'm telling you. Because I read that and I was reading Sacred Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I had to put it down because you got to be ready for stuff. No, we want to go gravitate to stuff, but we're not ready. It's not going to give us what we need, But I read that book because it's like, it had that perspective from a man's perspective about a man. And if men could, I just want to tell all men to read it for self-development.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to embrace all the concepts in the book, but when you can grasp concepts like the Bible says, when you become a man, you put away childish things.
Yeah.
When you can grasp that type of stuff and really understand what that means, when you read a book like that, The Way of the Superior Man is teaching you values and beliefs as a man that once you become a man, you shouldn't be doing things that you was doing as a child. Yeah. It just doesn't even make sense. Does that make sense? Like,
no, that's true. Yeah.
All the little hot boy stuff and all the little playery stuff.
Yeah,
and it teaches you, the foundation of the book is about you mastering those childish things that makes you become a man. Yeah. You master those things. And that's what that book teaches you, the concepts of if you still run up behind sexual activity, you're not growing as a man because that's what's ruling you. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No,
that's I have a 10-year-old son. I gotta give him some good stuff.
That's real though, and that's even from a man's perspective, you know how it used to be where you see the old head hanging around high school. And it's like, man, you still hanging around? You graduated 5 years ago. But that mentality, I remember as a kid seeing those guys. I'm like, man, that ain't never gonna be me. I ain't like, come on, get it together. But that's outstanding. Please, where can people find you? Give your plugs. Because I want people to support your book and you got your new one coming out. Let them know where they can find you.
Well, I'm all on social media as Lynne Jasames, and I'm going to spell it Lynne. And once you tap into Jasames, it's Jasames. You'll be able to immediately find me because there's not too many of me out there.
Unique name, yes.
And I'm going to tell you, I take that unique name within and of itself, and it's giving me power to say, you different. Yeah. You set apart. Because if you say Lynne Jasames, you're going to know who they're talking about. You're not going to miss that beat. So that's one of my driving forces to embrace the fact that I have a special purpose to serve on this earth, and it's me mentally, physically, spiritually preparing myself for God to use me in the capacity that it serves everyone else's best interest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love talking to people that are comfortable in their own skin, and you're very much that.
Thank you.
This has been outstanding. If you don't know, this is the Shareholders podcast. Miss Lynne has just dropped gem after gem after gem on us, so I hope you've learned some things. Please support her book and her works, and if she's ever
It's 3 books
anywhere. Because you got the How to Cry.
It's okay to cry kind of. Then kind of that's the start, but it's okay to cry when the odds are against you. And I never really use him in that capacity, but Les Brown, wrote the foreword to that book.
I saw that. I said Les, okay.
Yeah, so I was blessed enough to be on this platform for a couple of years. Yeah. He's genuinely the person that he represents himself to be, and I love it. And then the book I just released is called How to Beat the Odds from A to Z. So that's a bunch of values and beliefs, and I think we as people don't understand what our true values and beliefs are. So I said the ones that has really been instrumental in my life, I put them in a book. I shared them. I gave you a story behind it so you can see how it works. So it's been a blessing for the people that's read it.
Outstanding. So outstanding. So check those out. This, of course, is the Shareholders Podcast. It is on the Mighty Sharp Network. I got to always explain that to some people. Mighty Sharp Network is NBC. Like, this show is like Law and Order. You see what I'm saying? So some people are like, I was looking for the website. So you go to Mighty Sharp Show and you'll find all of these shows, and we'll be on, of course, YouTube. You can go on audio, on iTunes, on Spotify as well. We will have this up, and please leave some comments, support her as well. Make a friend. She's active on Instagram as well, all those things. And you see a beautiful soul, a sweet spirit. And I'm so glad you took time to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, you guys, as always, stay sharp.